On April 24th, 2024, Jack Perry made his long-awaited return to AEW Dynamite after being sidelined for nearly a year following his backstage altercation with CM Punk at All In 2023. Perry confronted AEW president Tony Khan, offering him a handshake before swiftly turning on him with a vicious attack. As the chaos unfolded, the Young Bucks and Okada, the newest member of the Elite, rushed to the ring seemingly to de-escalate the situation, but they joined Jack in continuing the assault on Khan. Perry joined the Elite and the message was sent: they were here to take over AEW. This was the first time that Tony Khan physically got involved in AEW, so things were looking promising. Many believe that if Tony was willing to step into the ring, it signaled something important and worth paying attention to. The next week, on May 1st, 2024, Kenny Omega talked about his health, informing the audience that he was lucky to be alive, but would need major surgery in the future. However, he was attacked by the new Elite. This moment perfectly showcased the classic heel move of capitalizing on a situation, launching an attack when their opponent is at its most vulnerable. They were seen as the biggest heels in AEW and things were looking good for them. Jack Perry won the TNT Championship, Okada held the Continental Championship, and the Young Bucks held the tag team titles. They were on top. However, as time passed, the story grew stagnant with little development, and now 6 months later, we are at the same place where we started with no development. So what happened? How did one of the biggest factions in AEW become stale? Let's get into it.
You think you know all the wrestling stories? There's more you haven't heard yet. Join us on Backstage Pass.
First, let's start from the beginning. Nearly 6 years ago, the Elite solidified their place in wrestling history, becoming key figures in the formation of AEW. Kenny Omega, Cody Rhodes, and the Young Bucks had all toiled restlessly to reach this huge moment, and with Tony Khan by their side, they set out with the goal of revolutionizing the industry. They were assigned the roles of the EVPs, looking at the operations backstage. They were a part of some incredible storylines and were involved in AEW programming for the first few years. Although Cody wasn't seen with the rest of the Elite members on TV most of the time, his influence backstage was significant. They were helping Tony Khan run the company and also were involved in making new stars. A prime example of this is the rise of Hangman Page, who was also part of the Elite but walked out. The Elite helped shape Page's journey from a promising underdog to a superstar, culminating in his emotional AEW World Championship win against Kenny Omega at Full Gear 2021, cementing his place as a top-tier talent. You can argue that without the Elite, Hangman Page wouldn't be that big of a superstar. We've covered his entire story in our channel, and you can check that out anytime you want. In 2021, Adam Cole made his AEW debut and joined the Elite for a short while, but another thing happened in the same year, which began to change everything for the group. CM Punk came to AEW. For the first year, they were not involved in a rivalry with Punk, but his presence and growing popularity shifted the focus away from the Elite. Now Punk was the biggest star in the company. In the meantime, Cody Rhodes decided to leave AEW and made a grand return to WWE at WrestleMania 38 and went on to become one of the biggest names in professional wrestling. Rhodes leaving the company was the biggest blow in AEW history, leaving the remaining founding members, Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks, as the only original pillars still standing. On the other hand, CM Punk started a feud with AEW World Champion Hangman Page in 2022. And on an episode of Dynamite, Page went off script on Punk and said some things which were not discussed. He called Punk out for having Colt Cabana fired. Punk wasn't happy with this. He won the AEW World Championship from Page, but the tensions didn't rest. He got injured and returned, winning the title back at All Out 2022. What happened at the media scrum after that show changed everything for AEW. CM Punk unleashed a tirade against Hangman Page and the Elite, accusing them of spreading rumors regarding his alleged role in Colt Cabana's firing, making it clear that he had nothing to do with it. His passionate and confrontational remarks escalated, which led to a brawl backstage between the Elite and CM Punk and his friend Ace Steel. This marked the first instance of such controversial news involving AEW, prompting discussions about the company's management. The fallout from Punk's outburst at the media scrum sent shockwaves through the wrestling community. Everyone was talking about it. Tony Khan had no choice but to suspend everyone involved in the brawl, and they had to sign an NDA, which means we will likely never know what actually happened that night. On the same night, at All Out, the Elite, which is Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks, had won their first ever Trios Championship, but they had to vacate the title due to their suspension. Punk also vacated his title, but got injured during his match at All Out, so he was going to be out anyway. In the meantime, fans began anticipating that this real-life tension would unfold into a storyline featuring Punk and the Elite. There was a huge opportunity for AEW to do this, which could have worked as there was a huge interest in it. The Elite came back and won the Trios Championship back, but fans had to wait for Punk to return. According to Punk, he did not hear from AEW for 6 months after the event at All Out 2022. He had no help when it came to his injury and had to figure it all out by himself. He finally made his return in June 2023 on AEW's brand new show Collision, which was built around him as a central figure. The promotion invested heavily in Punk's return, positioning him as the driving force behind Collision. Reportedly, Punk wanted to talk with the Elite after coming back, but the group had nothing to do with him. They remained on separate shows, avoiding any confrontation. This was disappointing for fans who were eager to see them settle their differences in the ring. However, the separation was done to avoid any further controversy. AEW then produced its biggest show, All In, at Wembley Stadium in London in 2023. During the pre-show, Jack Perry faced Hook for the FTW Championship. During the match, he took direct shots at CM Punk, using real glass and tauntingly looking into the camera saying,
"Real glass!
Crushing the
Go
abdomen.
cry me a river!"
Prior to All In, Perry wanted to use real glass on Collision, but Punk advised against it. Ignoring the advice, Perry used it anyway at All In and directly called Punk out. This infuriated Punk, leading to a backstage confrontation that escalated into a physical altercation, with Punk choking Perry. Interestingly, Punk went on to compete in a match against Samoa Joe just moments after the backstage incident. You must be thinking, why are we talking about Punk and Jack Perry here? Well, this story is very important for what happened next. We'll get to that in a bit. Following this, Punk was fired and Perry was suspended. Punk made one of the biggest returns in WWE at Survivor Series 2023, while Perry disappeared from TV. In the meantime, the Elite had a very brutal feud with Blackpool Combat Club and even reunited with Hangman Page. As time passed, Kenny Omega began teaming up with Chris Jericho, which didn't sit well with the Young Bucks. This tension culminated in a tag match between the Young Bucks and the team of Omega and Jericho at Full Gear, which they lost. The Young Bucks started acting like frustrated heels, showing signs of jealousy over Kenny Omega's alliance with Chris Jericho. It looked like they were going somewhere with this. However, Kenny was suffering from diverticulitis and had to take some time off, leaving the storyline. Following this, the Bucks got involved in a feud with Darby Allin and Sting, facing them in Sting's last match at Revolution. Around this time, Matt and Nick began referring to themselves as their real names, Matthew and Nicholas Jackson, and started embracing the EVP roles on TV, making on-screen decisions. This is when they fired Kenny Omega from the group and brought in Okada to join the Elite. Okada, one of the biggest stars in Japan and the face of New Japan Pro Wrestling, added immense star power to Matt and Nick's faction. His arrival created a buzz among fans. He went on to win the Continental Championship, and the Bucks won the Tag Team Championship at Dynasty thanks to the return of Jack Perry. So why did Jack Perry help the Young Bucks? The answer is CM Punk. So Punk did an interview with Ariel Helwani where he talked about what happened at All In and how he choked Jack Perry out. He also talked about the brawl with the Elite and criticized Tony Khan for being a weak boss. How did AEW respond to this? By having the Young Bucks release the footage of the backstage incident between Punk and Perry, where Punk was seen choking Perry. They even said that if you have a problem with someone like Jack Perry, then you are the problem. This was seen as a desperate move, and people started criticizing AEW for using CM Punk's name when he was long gone. However, this made it clear that Jack Perry was coming back to join the Young Bucks, and that's exactly what happened at AEW Dynasty as he returned to help Matt and Nick Jackson win the AEW Tag Team Championships. We can say that using Punk's name was a disappointing move, But the Young Bucks, as heels, were doing an amazing job generating heat and keeping the audience engaged. It was cheap heat, but heat nonetheless. The following episode on Dynamite, Perry made his official return to AEW, joining the Elite. He went to the ring and called Tony Khan out, asking him to reinstate him, and Tony, like the nice boss that he is, did just that with a smile on his face. They shook hands and Jack proceeded to attack him. Young Bucks and Okada came out and did the same. Like we mentioned, it was the first time that Tony Khan was physically getting involved, which seemed like a big deal. Fans began speculating about the possibility of Tony Khan having a match with Jack Perry in the future. For the next few weeks, Tony disappeared from TV and the Elite took complete control of AEW. The next week, they attacked Kenny Omega when he came back to talk about his health. This was a way to write him off TV for the next few months. However, before his departure, Omega announced the Anarchy in the Arena match at Double or Nothing, which would feature the Elite facing a team made up of FTR, Bryan Danielson, and Darby Allin. This was one of the most brutal matches in AEW history, with Darby Allin literally setting Jack Perry on fire in front of the crowd. It was hard to watch. On top of that, during the end, Allin was tied upside down and was hanging while the match was taking place. The sheer intensity and violence of the match left fans in shock and awe. The Elite won the match by Perry delivering a running knee to Danielson and pinning him in the middle of the ring. To say this match was controversial would be an understatement. It was the kind of match that will be hard to top. Following this, Perry won the TNT Championship and they went to war again. This time at Blood and Guts against a team of Darby Allin, Swerve Strickland, Mark Briscoe, and The Acclaimed. They teamed up with Hangman Page, who had his own issues with Swerve. However, they lost this intense match. This was a turning point as things began to cool off for the new Elite. The Young Bucks successfully defended their tag team titles against FTR, while Jack Perry defended the TNT Championship against Darby Allin and The Acclaimed at All In 2024. However, it didn't seem like there was a long-term plan for the group. Even Tony Khan made his return, but there was no follow-up regarding the beatdown he received from the Elite. This left fans feeling somewhat disappointed as the lack of storyline resolution regarding Khan's involvement diminished the intensity of the storyline. The group had been the biggest heels in AEW, but now that heat seemed to go away with Jon Moxley's recent return as a heel. Moxley won the AEW Championship from Bryan Danielson, ending his full-time career, and even persuaded the BCC to turn on Bryan. They are now the big baddies in AEW. This shift in dynamics has affected the Elite's heel status. While they are currently holding the titles, there seems to be no clear direction for them. The Young Bucks and Jack Perry appear to have some trajectory as they defend their titles quite frequently. But Okada seems directionless. Since defeating Eddie Kingston for the Continental Championship, he has not engaged in any significant feuds. This goes to show that AEW doesn't have any long-term plans for them. We can accept this story to end with Kenny Omega's return and potentially bringing everything to a head. However, given the current state of AEW, there's uncertainty about how and when that will happen. The biggest mistake AEW made was using CM Punk's name and releasing the All In footage. There was no point in bringing that out. We understand that it was done to reintroduce Jack Perry into the mix, but what has it done in the long run? Although Perry has evolved as a performer, he now seems like a wrestler who is writing off that one incident rather than establishing his own identity within the company. At this point, it's better for them to go their separate ways completely. Okada and Jack Perry would probably do better on their own, while the Bucks could be just one of the best tag teams in the world again without performing as EVP characters. What do you think?